You don't need to say it. You don't need to prove it. You don't even need to move. People feel it the moment you walk in. The air shifts. Laughter doesn't land the same. Words tangle in people's throats. It's not because you're rude. It's not because you're trying to dominate. It's because your presence carries weight, the kind most people never learn to hold. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That's what happens around you. Not a conversation. Not an exchange of words. A reaction. And reactions can be unsettling. See, most people spend their lives polishing masks, smiling when they don't mean it, talking to fill silence, playing roles they've rehearsed so long they forget they're acting. But then you show up, and suddenly their masks feel heavier. Their words feel emptier. Their laughter sounds false even to themselves. Because you aren't playing. You aren't pretending. You aren't carrying a mask. And that makes your presence magnetic, but overwhelming. This is the hidden power of your aura. You've felt it your whole life. The sideways glances, the awkward silences, the subtle resistance you get even when you've done nothing wrong. You've asked yourself, why does my energy make people so uncomfortable? This is why. Your aura isn't loud, it isn't flashy, but it's undeniable. And these are 15 signs that prove your aura overwhelms people, even when you say nothing at all. Sign 1. People accuse you of being too much. You've heard it before. Maybe whispered behind your back. Maybe said half-jokingly to your face. Too serious. Too intense. Too much. But here's the truth. When someone calls you too much, what they really mean is, you make me feel things I don't want to feel. Imagine this. You're sitting at a dinner table. Everyone else is laughing about trivial things. Celebrity gossip, sports, who embarrass themselves at work. You sit quietly, listening. Then someone asks you a question. You don't dodge it. You don't hide behind a joke. You answer honestly. Maybe you talk about purpose, or mortality, or why people waste so much time pretending. And the table goes silent. Not because you're wrong, not because you're boring, but because you just ripped the mask off the room. Harvard research in 2019 showed that people feel more threatened by authenticity than by aggression. Aggression is predictable. You can fight it. Authenticity is different. It forces you to confront what you're avoiding. That's your aura. You don't raise your voice. You don't demand attention. But you live in truth. And truth doesn't make people comfortable. Carl Jung said that authenticity is the rarest form of courage because it requires integrating your shadow, the parts of you society told you to hide. You've done that work, most haven't. So when people say, "You're too much," hear it for what it is, a confession. What they really mean is, you make me feel my own emptiness. Sign 2. Small talk drains you to the bone. You've felt it your whole life. The moment someone says, "So, how's the weather?" "Crazy traffic today, huh?" "Did you see that show last night?" Your energy collapses. It's not arrogance. It's not disinterest. It's biology. In 2020, the University of Arizona studied people who scored high in existential thinking, meaning they naturally ask deeper questions. The results? They physically experienced fatigue when stuck in shallow conversations. That's you. Your aura resists the trivial. It's hungry for meaning. And when there isn't any, your body knows it. Imagine this. You're at a party. Everyone's circling the same 3 topics: the weather, the new gadget they bought, who's dating who. You listen for a while. You even try to participate. But it feels like swimming in a kiddie pool when your soul was built for the ocean. That's why small talk doesn't just bore you. It drains you. It costs you energy to pretend to care about things that carry no weight. Jung wrote that the psyche craves transformation, real connection, real evolution. And every time you're stuck in a shallow script, your aura screams, "This isn't real. Give me something true." Most people don't hear that scream, but they feel it, and it unsettles them. Sign 3. Strangers confess their lives to you. You're sitting on a plane. You don't know the person next to you. You exchange a polite hello. And 20 minutes later, they're telling you about their divorce, their addictions, their darkest secret they haven't even told their family. Then they pause and laugh nervously. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but you know why. A 2021 study at Cambridge found that people unconsciously gravitate toward those with what's called high emotional containment. In other words, people whose energy signals safety. That's you. Your aura tells people, you can put it down here, you can take off the mask. And they do. But here's the paradox. They unload on you. They feel lighter. They walk away relieved. And you're left carrying the weight. This is the healer archetype Jung talked about. Even if you're not a doctor, a therapist, a coach, your very presence becomes a sanctuary for other people's pain. It's a gift, but it's also lonely. Because while everyone comes to you to release their truth, very few stay long enough to hear yours. Sign 4. Eye contact with you is different. Some avoid it. Some can't stop staring. Either way, they feel it. When you lock eyes with someone, they often look away fast, like they've been caught, like they've seen something they didn't mean to. That's because your eyes aren't just eyes, they're mirrors. In 2020, Stanford researchers proved that prolonged eye contact increases activity in the part of the brain responsible for self-awareness. Meaning, when someone looks into your eyes, they don't just see you, they see themselves, and not everyone is ready for that. Jung taught that once you integrate your shadow, your gaze carries a different weight. It doesn't just glance, it penetrates. It calls out the hidden. That's why some find your gaze magnetic, healing, like home, and others fidget, grow defensive, or avoid it altogether. Because your eyes don't just look, they reveal. Sign 5. Your presence triggers reactions you don't understand. You've been here before. You're sitting quietly, saying nothing unusual, doing nothing wrong. And suddenly someone gets defensive, or irritated, or distant. And you wonder, what did I do? Here's the answer. Nothing. What you experienced is called projective identification. When people bury emotions they don't want to feel, shame, envy, insecurity, they unconsciously project those feelings onto someone else. Often, that someone is you. Because your aura acts like a mirror, You don't just reflect their smile, you reflect their shadow. So they lash out, they blame you, they treat you like you've done something wrong. But you didn't. Carl Jung said that integrated individuals unconsciously awaken the buried parts of those around them. Your presence makes people confront what they've tried to ignore, and most people would rather attack the mirror than face their reflection. So remember this: when someone reacts strangely to you, when they pull away, get cold, or turn defensive without reason, it's not always about you. Often, it's about what your presence pulled out of them. Sign 6. Fake personas collapse around you. People rarely put it into words, but you can sense it immediately. Picture this. You're at a party. Music low. Laughter bouncing off the walls. Everyone is entertained by the loudest voice in the room. The guy telling exaggerated stories, his gestures just a little too sharp, his laugh a little too forced. Everyone else nods, smiles, pretends to be impressed. But then his eyes land on you. And in that instant, something changes. His voice falters. His rhythm breaks. He suddenly needs a sip of his drink, a quick joke, a way to distract himself. Why? Because your silence already said what no words could. Jung explained that once you've confronted your own shadow, you stop needing masks, you stop pretending. And because you no longer perform, you can't join in on someone else's act. Your aura doesn't attack, it doesn't humiliate, but it exposes. And people feel naked around it. Seneca once said, "A mask tells us more than a face." And you see both. That's why some people feel uneasy around you. Their fake personas can survive almost anywhere, but next to you, they suffocate. Sign 7. Silence follows you. You've noticed it. You enter a room and the conversation shifts. Not because you interrupt, not because you demand attention, but because silence follows you like a shadow. Imagine this. You're in a group of co-workers. They're chatting about weekend plans, laughing about trivial stories. You join them quietly. You listen, nod. Maybe you ask one real question, something deeper than the surface. And suddenly the air changes. The laughter dies down. The words don't flow as easily. Why? Because silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's a presence of its own. A 2019 study from Duke University found that 2 minutes of silence activates the brain's default mode network, the same region triggered by deep meditation. When you bring silence, you pull people inward. And not everyone likes that. Most people use noise to run from themselves. But your aura carries silence like a sword. It cuts through the distraction, forcing people to sit with what they've been avoiding. That's why silence follows you, not as emptiness, but as weight. Sign 8. You make people rethink their choices. You don't lecture, you don't preach, but your presence alone plants questions in people's minds. They watch how you move, how you choose, how you carry yourself, and suddenly their own choices feel flimsy. Imagine this. You decline an invite to a meaningless night out. Not with judgment, not with arrogance, just calmly. Not tonight. And later, someone who went finds themselves staring in the mirror at 2 a.m., wondering why they wasted another night chasing emptiness. You didn't tell them to. You didn't shame them. But your example whispered, "There's another way." Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's what your aura does. It doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It just exists. And in existing, it forces reflection. People either rise toward it or resent it. Sign 9. Authority reacts strangely to you. Teachers, bosses, leaders, you've noticed it. Sometimes they admire you, respect you, treat you like an equal even when you're not supposed to be one. Other times, they treat you as a threat. Why? Because authority is built on illusion, on hierarchy, on the idea that one person knows better than another. But your aura quietly rejects false hierarchies. You walk into a room and, without saying a word, your energy communicates. I answer to truth, not to titles. And those who cling to power can feel it. That's why some bosses suddenly grow hostile toward you. Why some teachers tried to cut you down. Why some leaders saw you as rebellion even when you stayed silent. Marcus Aurelius himself said, "The best way to avenge yourself is not to be like your enemy." And that's you. You don't fight authority. You simply carry yourself as though you are your own authority. And for fragile egos, that's enough to spark fear. Sign 10. People test you. You've seen this pattern. Someone meets you, and almost immediately, they throw little challenges your way. They tease you, push your buttons, question your knowledge, even create conflict out of nothing. Why? Because your aura unsettles them, and they don't know why. So they test you to measure your strength. It's primal. In 2022, a study on social dominance behaviors found that when people encounter someone whose presence feels strong but non-aggressive, they instinctively probe to see where the boundaries are. That's why you get tested. But notice what happens when you don't flinch, when you don't overreact, when you stay calm, composed, unshaken. The testing stops, the teasing fades, and often respect replaces it. Because what they were really searching for wasn't weakness, it was certainty. And when you showed it, silently, they recognized it. Sign 11. Strangers gravitate toward you. It happens in airports, in coffee shops, on quiet walks. A stranger locks eyes, and before you know it, they're telling you about their regrets, their dreams, their heartbreak. They don't even know why. But you do. In 2018, the University of Toronto published findings on what they called perceived psychological safety. People instinctively feel when they're in the presence of someone whose energy is grounded, whose self has been integrated. Around those people, defenses drop. That's your aura. It's not charisma, it's not charm, it's gravity. You don't pull people in by trying. You pull them in by being. And for them, it feels like relief. For you, it can feel like carrying weights you never asked for. Sign 12. You can read a room without words. You step inside and you know. The couple who just argued. The friend who's hiding something. The quiet person sitting in the corner because they feel invisible. You don't need proof. You don't need evidence. You just feel it. Jung called this psychological intuition, the unconscious intelligence that bypasses logic. But here's the paradox. While it gives you insight, it also costs you peace. Because you're not just living your own emotions, you're absorbing fragments of everyone else's. That's why a crowded room feels louder to you than to anyone else. Not because of the noise, but because of the energy. Sign 13. You've never felt like you fully belong. Even as a child, you felt it. At school, at family gatherings, with friends. The sense that you were watching the world rather than participating in it. That you were tuned into a frequency others couldn't hear. And you wondered, what's wrong with me? But nothing is wrong. In fact, psychology calls this existential sensitivity, the natural tendency to notice meaning, mortality, purpose. Studies from the University of Helsinki in 2021 showed that people with this trait often feel alienated in youth, but later emerge as leaders, thinkers, visionaries. So your sense of not belonging? It isn't exile, it's evidence. Evidence that your path was never meant to be ordinary. Sign 14. You trigger extremes in people. There's no neutral reaction to you. Some people adore you. Some people despise you. Few are indifferent. Why? Because your aura acts like a mirror, and mirrors don't flatter, they reveal. A Stanford study in 2022 confirmed that people unconsciously project their disowned traits onto others more intensely when the other person carries calm, integrated presence. That's you. Some will see in you their courage, their wisdom, their truth, and they'll admire you. Others will see in you their fear, their insecurity, their dishonesty, and they'll resent you. It's never really about you. It's always about what they see of themselves when they're near you. Sign 15. Your existence challenges the status quo. You don't even need to speak. Your silence questions. Your choices disrupt. Your presence alone feels like resistance. Why? Because most of the world runs on scripts. Be agreeable, be small, be predictable. But you live unscripted. That's why workplaces, families, even friendships sometimes push back against you. Your aura is a reminder that another way exists, a way without masks, without pretending, without submission. And that reminder threatens people who've built their identity on comfort. You don't just live differently, you represent the possibility of change. And change terrifies people more than anything. So, if you've ever wondered why people flinch, why conversations shift, why your silence feels louder than words, this is why. It's not because you're broken, it's not because you're too much. It's because your aura carries weight. The weight of self-awareness, the weight of authenticity, the weight of truth, and most people aren't ready to hold it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's your task. Not to convince, not to conform, not to shrink, but to keep being. Because the world doesn't need more masks. It doesn't need more noise. It doesn't need more shallow approval. It needs presence. It needs depth. It needs people like you, willing to carry the silence, the clarity, the intensity most will never touch. So the next time they call you too much, too different, too rare, smile, because you are. And that's exactly the point.